Hi, this is Dr. John Grazel, and this synoptic video focuses on institutional change and transformation and actually how to affect it. But it really begins with a challenge that was placed by Dr. Margaret Mead, a famous anthropologist, who, among her many, many writings, years ago, pointed out that the world is filled with people who, in their daily lives, uh, perform the tasks that keep ourselves, our families, our communities going. And is also filled with great aspirations, great ideas, and great understandings. But that we seem to face an incredible challenge in putting those two together in ways that continue to go on in a sustainable fashion, particularly not only to solve our present day problems, but even more challenging to solve problems in a new world where things are changing so fast that the experiences of the past really cannot serve as guidance for the future in the way they did in other times. Now, in understanding that dichotomy of individuals and great ideas and great purposes, you almost have to view a spectrum. And it's that spectrum can be several spectrums. It's the spectrum of individual in competition to people working together in cooperation. It's individuals in terms of identifying as themselves when compared to individuals who identify as a community. It's particular actions contrasted to things that become ongoing processes. It's single transactions that we to affect something in contrast to relationships, enduring relationships. And it's particular efforts in contrast to what we call institutions. And what we call institutions are ways of doing things, understandings, rules, incentives, constraints that all serve to mutually support ongoing behavior so it sustains itself and continues in the fashion intended. Now, this is the challenge. The challenge is institutions by themselves are designed not to change. In fact, when we want to achieve something, we try very often to institutionalize it so it will endure. So we not just to build a school, but a school system, not just to build a particular store, but a market system, not just to build, not just to set down a rule, but actually to have codes of laws and a constitution. It's through institutionalization that we attain sustainability. But the problem is that what faces us today is that most of our institutions are no longer equipped for the challenges we face. And that's across the board. And just to give some examples, we know that our politics tends to be win-lose politics. It tends to be competitive, diverse. It pits interests against each other, when in fact what we know we have to do is we have to reach agreement on win-win solutions. We have to bring people together to work together in ways that are constructive and actually add value to the efforts of others. And we have to meet the minimal satisfactions of an entire world population, not only political groups. Our education institutions are the same. Great as they are built on the idea of disciplines, of departments, of particular specializations of knowledge. And in fact, we know that the problems we face are holistic problems, ever-changing, dynamic, demanding creative thinking and new solutions and actually networking of people together. We know our religions. If we look at our religions tend to be based on doctrines, orthodoxies, rituals. These are all things that keep things going as they were intended. But in fact, in one world, we have to rediscover our spirituality in terms of ways that allow us to be spiritual ourselves and to be spiritual in our relation to others. And that's going to require a whole new series of dialoguing, of searching, of sharing and reflection together that doesn't exist within institutionalized religions themselves. So, how do you change institutions? Now, first of all, this entire series has constantly emphasized that there is a simple formula that seems to keep popping up, and that key formula is systematic and cooperative behavior done with a concern for sustainability and equity. So that's the first key, is instead of just doing things because it is the established way and because the rules and incentives and structures are gathered to make it happen, one has to begin to ask each time, are we doing things in a systematic, cooperative way that is paying attention to sustainability and equity? Now, how do we do that in a way that actually also transforms the institutions? In that case, what is required is actually to almost step out of the institutions and reflect on them and then return to them as agents of change within them. There have been several individuals, I particularly made reference to Dr. Margaret Mead. Edward Deming, who was the father of quality control, had a whole philosophy of organizational transformation, which is really institutional transformation, where he describes his version of this process. Another individual was David Bohm, famous physicist, who developed his own understanding of dialogue. We have one, and we discuss it on another tape. We call it community-focused, principle-based development. Now, the key behind this is when Margaret Mead gave this challenge, she also gave a famous answer, which is that change occurs only by small groups of people working together, because in fact, institutions are people. We talk about corporate conscience, only people have conscience. Now, when in history do we even get true institutional transformation and not just reorganization? And there are at least three circumstances that I would put on the table. One is when we get massive destruction, such as after World War II. And the old institutions are so damaged and destroyed that the new institutions have to be built, such as the United Nations system. Okay. The second time we very often get it is when we get a disruptive technology, something that so disrupts the way things work that people have to change in order to respond to the technology itself. And the internet and the information technology revolution, it may be one example. And an example of its outcome might be something like Wikipedia, as contrast to the whole system of education that I described as classical institutional academia. And a third way is, if we look at history, when we get unique, inspiring thoughts and teachings through unique individuals. And in fact, this has almost always come in the form of some spiritual religious leader. If we look through history, what we see, whether we see our Buddhas or our Moseses or our Krishnas or our Bahá'ís or our Muhammads or our Zoroasters, these are all individuals who at critical times have come to groups of people and presented them with visions of such power that the people themselves have accepted the authority of those people and their vision as the basis for reconstituting their institutions. And I would propose that at the present time, probably all three are in play, and we should be drawing on all three.